Is it Pak Julian?
Even Pak Rudi juga not yet come. Not yet
Okay.
in. Because
we have
I already asked some students to left this meeting. Many of them already left, but still 250 again. Reach it again. It's 1,100 registered in our form. So
how many? 1,000?
What 1,100
Before you stop. So
Yeah.
Dr. Yanyan, so this
so
is like
shocking. Yeah,
this is like a record breaking for us.
this the record, the highest participant so far. I don't know.
And we have more in YouTube channel. There are more.
There are two. There are two YouTube channel.
And I think that
We provide
get quite full as well.
another channels, but still, it's still 250. Wow.
Wow. Okay. Wow. So
Is
we're
Professor
waiting for the
here?
other panelists. No, few panelists, Dr. Rifani, Professor Rifani, Pak Julian, and Pak Rudi, and Pak Arif here? Pak Muhammad Arif?
Yes, Pak.
Pak, apa kabar? How are you, Pak?
Alhamdulillah. Good. How are you, Pak?
Good. Thank you for coming, Pak. Thank you that you're able to come in. We have so many students, people who want to listen to the discussion today. Like this is like really
So many left and so many
coming in. I'm trying to see if it's
people left and come.
yeah. I'm trying to see if the other
All the time is still 250. Can you imagine that?
Oh boy, wow! Like every time somebody moves to the YouTube, and then another one coming in. Pretty funny.
I think international relation will defeat public relations someday. The popularity of the international relation will be, become stronger. Yeah? Become, I don't know. This topic is
funny. I'm still trying to contact.
Hai Pak, namanya apa?
So many students.
Bapak tadi dengar nggak dipanggil-panggil? Nggak dengar?
Bu?
Coba deh ulang lagi ya. Tadi udah bisa itu kok. Tadi udah dipanggil nggak bisa.
Oh, Pak Julian is trying to get in, still not yet in.
Bentar.
Pak Rudi here?
Pak Rudi here?
Pak Rudi.
Dia nggak bisa masuk, Pak.
Yeah, we are waiting for Pak
1,000 try to get in. 1,100. Register.
COVID ini kan bisa lewat mana saja. Orang-orang yang sangat protektif itu jangan setelah ya bisa juga suatu saat kena karena dia tidak sadar lingkungan sekitarnya tidak seprotektif dia misalnya. Jadi ini hal-hal yang harus kita jaga bersama. Itu contohnya. Nah tadi diskusinya sudah kita lakukan ya tentang iklan. Nah pertanyaan berikutnya ini.
Why there is a study? Okay, Pak Rudi, Pak Julian, and Prof. Rifani.
Pak Rudi seems cancel his.
Pak Ari.
Yes.
Pak Julian mau masuk tapi nggak bisa, gimana ya?
No, we're trying to move people to YouTube now, and it's still trying, keep trying, and keep trying, because it's just a lot of people.
Just keep trying.
Wow.
Okay, sorry.
Gimana sih?
2 past 10. Can we open now?
No, we have to wait, Pak, because the main speaker, Pak Julian's not yet in, and also we trying, I'm trying to.
I already told Professor Rifani, Professor, we have 800. Yesterday I told him that so far we have 800 participants. So please come earlier. Otherwise you cannot join in because everybody try to enter at the same time. Wow. Alfie,
Ya,
could you contact Professor Rifani, please?
ya, sudah Pak. Dan Prof tidak bisa masuk Pak.
Nggak bisa masuk.
Sorry,
Iya, sama Pak Rudi Pak.
Ini ada Pak Julian. Yang Pak Julian.
sorry, I'm being late. I'm sorry.
Hi, Pak Julian.
Difficult to join.
Pak, we're still we're still fighting for the space here.
Okay. Crowded.
We are still trying
crowded.
to have Professor Rifani here, and also Pak Rudi Sukandar.
Okay.
And this is the first time ever that our discussion becomes this jam-packed full, Pak. I think this is more like
How many participants?
more than
Ada
1,000,
Prof.
Pak.
Rifani. Hai Prof.
Everybody here? The speakers? Pak Rudi?
Almost.
Halo Pak Rudi. Udah ada Pak Rudi kayaknya.
Udah Pak, udah.
Pak Rendro in charge as a moderator. You are moderating in our discussion today. Pak Rendro.
Ya.
Okay.
Pak Prof.
Just Prof Rifani.
Halo Prof.
Just wait for Prof Rifani.
All right, please go ahead. I'm full.
Oke, thank you Prof. Ya, Pak Rudi bisa dibuka atau bagaimana nih tadi urutannya? Saya agak lupa. Saya yang buka atau Pak Rudi?
Pak Rudi.
Pak Rudi ya, silakan Pak Rudi.
Oke. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang, salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Bapak Ibu sekalian, terima kasih sudah bergabung dalam acara webinar kita pada hari ini yang bertajuk I'm supposed to talk about it in English, right?
Yes, yes, Pak.
Sorry. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us in our webinar today. I think this is one of the first experiences that I have when the forum is really packed with everyone to join, and I think it's probably because the topic is quite interesting for some people. It's on South China Sea, and we look at that from a multi-dimensional perspective. And I would like to thank all the speakers today who have willingly been trying to join us in our discussion today. And then also would like to thank Rendro and the Research Center to provide all the opportunities for today. So I think that is all. Thank you very much and enjoy the webinar today. Pak Rendro, back to you.
Thank you very much Pak Rudi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Good afternoon and welcome everyone. Our distinguished guest speakers, dear lecturers and students. Thank you very much for coming to our monthly discussion today, 25 September. And first of all, let me introduce myself. I am Rendro Dani, head of the Research Center of LSPR Communication and Business Institute in Jakarta. Will be the moderator for this event, and I would like to also thank to Pak Ari Widodo, the one who became speakers and the one who initiated this discussion. Yeah, Yeah, to be honest, I really surprised and of course very happy at the same time. Of course, because we have fantastic response from the participants. And as yesterday, we have 1,100 participants registered themselves. And this is, as Pak Ari said before, this is a new record for holding a webinar so far. We had to close the registration yesterday because we have the capacity, maximum capacity is about 250 participants. But don't worry, if the capacity is already full, then we already prepared two other YouTube channel. First is from our YouTube channel, LSPR channel, and the second one is Hereby YouTube channel. Okay, the great enthusiasm from the student, I think it's become an indicator that this topic and the problem in the international relation has become a big concern from our student, especially maybe from the freshmen. Yeah, because I can see that there are so many, the majority of the student is a freshman student who may choose the who may study international relation as their future major. Okay, so let's get started. Today we have five speakers, ascending speakers with different background and expertise, from different countries. Yeah, we have, of course, from China, from Malaysia, and from Indonesia. So, please allow me to introduce the first speaker. Will be from China, yeah. Dr. Yan Yan. Dr. Yan Yan is already here. Good afternoon, Dr. Yan Yan.
Hi, good afternoon.
Thank you so much for coming for our discussion. So,
thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Yan Yan is Director of Research Center of Ocean Laws and Policy in the National Institute for the South China Sea Studies. She had a PhD in the University of Hong Kong on Public International Law and her master degree from London School of Economic and Political Science, LSE. Her research interest covers area is of the law of the sea, maritime security in the Asia Pacific, China's maritime law and policy, and the South China Sea. Okay, Dr. Yan Yan, the first speaker will become our first speaker. Do you have a presentation to present?
Because hi, good morning. Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Because
Yes.
I cannot see myself on the screen, so I don't know where I am. So I'm not sure whether you can see me clearly. And when I hear your voice, there's a problem of this networking thing. So I'm not sure it's about the Wi-Fi or anything else, but I'll try my best to make myself clear. Yes, so well, first of all, I would like to thank the organizer and Mr. Revani to invite me and to come to this event. I think this is very interesting, and it's also my first time to communicate with Indonesian students with large number of Indonesian students. It's my first time experience as well. So I haven't prepared much, but I think if I'm the first speaker to talk about the South China Sea, I think maybe I can give a short briefing of what has happened in the year 2020 in the South China Sea. Maybe like an opening up of today's seminar. Well, I would like to say that since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic earlier this year in February, I think we all see the tension in the South China Sea have surged. And there are many reasons for this. I think one of the most important reasons is the sharp deterioration of China-US relations over a variety of issues, especially the South China Sea. So no one can deny that the U.S. Is already a player in the South China Sea, although it's not a claimant. Well, from this year, I think the U.S. has stepped up its military presence in the South China Sea, as well as its criticism of China's actions and China's claims in the South China Sea. And it has, besides the military presence, it has submitted a letter on June 1st to the UN, making clear its stance, and also the very famous July 13 U.S. Secretary of State Pompeo's major statement on the South China Sea. And I think many things happen. So I would like to just single out some issues, some events that I think that are most critical recently. And also, I think the tension rise in the year 2020 because all the claimant states, every one of us has hardened our positions. Even during the pandemic, nobody back off, and the states have make their own activities at sea and trying to harden their own positions in the South China Sea. And that's the second thing. Like, for example, the note rebel submitted to the UN by all the states, all the claimant states, including the extra-regional states, and also the fishing issues by illegal fishing of Vietnam and the oil and gas exploration between Malaysia, Vietnam, and China, and also etc. So everybody's making its own moves in the South China Sea, and China also established 2 districts under the Sansha City in this April, which is a big news to many of these watchers of the South China Sea. And I think there is another reason why tensions has arisen in the year 2020 is because the COC negotiation that we are all looking forward to, and we all have much expectations of, has been suspended due to the pandemic, the situation of the pandemic this year. So I think the COC negotiation is the working group meeting and the high-level senior officials meeting. I think it's a very important communication venue, a platform for China-ASEAN states. The problem of the year 2020 is that it has been postponed. So none of the working group meetings and high-level senior officials meetings have been conducted. So I think that both China and ASEAN states, we have no face-to-face communication platform to say what we are concerned, what our concern is in the South China Sea, and what we expect from others. I think this is very important. But I'm happy to see that it has resumed earlier this month, September the 3rd. Although it's a special meeting between China and ASEAN states, I think it's a good sign that I think the COC negotiation might be resumed very soon. But finally, I think that although the situation, the tension has risen, but I think the whole situation in the South China Sea is still stable. Although there are many uncertainties, of course, but it's still still controllable. That means that I don't think that there will be a big, there will be a turbulence in the South China Sea, but things won't change much compared to last year. And I think the October especially before the U.S. presidential election, will be October will be tough for us, for every one of us. So I sincerely hope that we can survive this year, and looking forward to next year and see where we can have a more peaceful and more stable and more more beautiful South China Sea in the year 2021. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Yan Yan. And we will move to the second speaker today. The second speaker is Dr. Julian Aldrin. Dr. Julian Aldrin. Let me introduce the short video from Dr. Julian. Dr. Julian is head of Department of Political Science, Faculty of Social and Political Science in Universitas Indonesia, Jakarta, Indonesia. He was earned his PhD in Hosei University Graduate School, Tokyo, Japan in 2005, and his Master of Arts in Political Science at the same university. From Faculty of Social and Political Science, University of Indonesia, Universitas Indonesia. And Dr. Julian is also, you already know, maybe some of us already know that Dr. Julian is former presidential spokesperson during the Yudhoyono presidency. Dr. Julian, the time is the floor is yours. Please, maybe Alfie can present the presentation. Alfie.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak. Could you hear me?
Alfie?
Yes, okay.
Yeah, my sound is very clear. Okay. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to join with our discussion today. It's a very nice topic, and although it's a little bit sensitive, I think, but I'm very pleased to hear about our participants came from China, especially Dr. Yang has briefly addressed his views about the South China Sea, actually by the Chinese perspective. So, in my turn, I would like to give you a little bit different presentation. So, I think in my view that most of our audience today are students. So, I would like to try to give a background and sort of theories and approaching in advance, and after that we can see that the contemporary issues rising out in the South China Sea. So let me begin with my presentation. May I have by myself, or I have to?
Yeah, actually, if you have your presentation, you can share with us.
Sorry, I can share.
Sorry,
Yes.
Pak, it's not. Ini nggak bisa ditampilkan, Pak.
Nggak bisa ditampilkan? Okay.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, technical problem. I also cannot share your presentation. I don't know.
Okay.
Could
you help me to?
Could you try to present your PowerPoint?
Yes.
Julian.
I send you my PPT, my PowerPoint.
It's so crowded, not crowded maybe, so it is difficult. It's a technical problem. So sorry about that.
Is it impossible to share our presentation now?
Cannot, sir.
Okay. So if the host maybe try to share my presentation?
Sorry, sir. It's not working.
Sorry?
Not, sir. Nggak bisa.
Oh.
Nggak bisa Green, iya.
Oh,
Well,
yes.
maybe we can try later, Dr. Julian.
All right.
Maybe we can allow another speaker to
All right. All right.
before your turn,
Okay.
because we we have we have two PowerPoint, one with me and one with Alfie, but we cannot present. We will try again. Alfie, coba lagi dong, Alfie. Alfie. Nah, ini.
Okay.
Itu bisa tuh Pak.
Because
This is from me.
Ini udah bisa.
We have two PowerPoint, one with me and one with Alfie, but we cannot present. We will try again. Alfie, coba lagi dong, Alfie.
Ini udah bisa nih Pak. Udah kelihatan.
Nah,
Apakah sudah kelihatan?
All right. Okay.
ya dibesarin, oke.
Right. Let me start with if you talk about the South China Sea, I want to try to give descriptions about for us to understand about the Middle Kingdom and quote unquote, as I type my title today to address. So, and then the next, is this from me or?
From Alfie, Pak.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Sorry, Pak.
It's the uninteresting technical problems.
Yeah.
This is difficult because I'm sorry, Dr. Yang, because in Indonesia, as you may know, we are just a little bit trouble with the internet connectivity. So it's totally different with your country because China, if I'm not wrong, now is implementing the 5G, right? But we are still in the 3 or the something at the less more than 3. Okay, let me begin with the China call as Zhonggu. Okay, please correct me, Dr. Yang, if I'm wrong here. So if you look at this map, it is the ancient map, came from China. So the first map, the upper, we know that it's created about a long century ago. And the second, the below, is the map. If you can go to the Takusoku University, northeast from the Tokyo, at the university now you can find the map. Okay? So this is actually, if you say the map of China, would you mind if every participant mute the speaker? So China, like the kanjis, it means that the center and country. The center means like a chu, zong in the Chinese, and gu means country, that the center country. So, okay, it's a different pronunciation if we pronounce by the Japanese word is usually called it Chugoku, all right? So this means that I reverse the title of the...
Gambarnya kamu.
Okay, would you pass the next? The real middle kingdom in the world. It means that this map, ancient map. Please, the next step.
Udah.
This is good. The next. So I would like to describe about the one book here. I think all of the students, especially who concerned and studying in international relations or politics, of course, as well. So we know that the once books titled "Politics Among Nations" is very classic book, wrote by the Hans Morgenthau in 1949. So this book describe about the political realisms. We know that Morgenthau, and the latter part of the after he completed the political nation, he wrote some articles, and we can read as the Far East, for instance. This is the article I think just should note it down about the China. Actually, at the first occasion, Morgenthau mentioned China as the most powerful nations. It's of course it's in terms of predictions of him, actually. So, but if you say this way, and probably it's very common for the other student in international relation, many books in the related, of course, are very in
Ini kalau
line
mau ke WA bisa nggak, Le?
with with the this book, like wrote by the former Secretary of State of the U.S., Henry Kissinger. Kissinger wrote some books.
Bisa masuk tadi soalnya banyak
I'm
yang
sorry,
keluar.
could you
Masa tadi sampai pembicaranya nggak bisa
Mbak,
masuk?
halo Mbak,
Livia,
tolong di mute. Halo.
Jadi dia minta yang di
Livia.
Alfi bisa mute Alfi. Mbak Livia di mute aja Alfi.
nggak di mute ya, Bang.
okay.
Tolong yang lain di mute dulu speakernya ya. Terima kasih.
It's a book. For me, it seems to me, it's a look like a Bible for the who concern and studying in the political relations, especially on the international relations. So this is a sequential process. If you want to go to the now to understand about the terminology of the real Middle Kingdom in the world, we can go to the libraries to see that the historical perspective, storytelling perspective. So this book could probably give us a little explanations about what is China is becoming now. This is okay. Could the next step? Sorry. Okay. All right. Oh no. Okay. This is a concept. I try to describe about if you talk about the superpower, like for instance, such as the USSR, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic, we know that the three pillars actually they have in politics, in military, and of course in economy. So we know that the Soviet Union at the time during the Cold War with the USSR vis-a-vis and the US at the time for the several decades, the one reason of the why the USSR actually failed or lost their own superpower because not as a political and not in military, but actually is only due to economy fails. So this is capture about the USSR. You know that the capture is in Berlin borderlines. So it is symbolic to declare about the reunification of Germany, to make clear about the rivalry between the USSR and US is over. Ends. Okay, the next one. This is just illustration about the Cold War game. And you know that the end of the Cold War, especially is driven by the two leaders at the time. Of course, we don't deny about the leader or the president of the U.S. at the time, the President Ronald Reagan, and of course his counterpart from the USSR, the Secretary General of Mikhail Gorbachev. So they reached agreement to sign that the Cold War ends. Okay, next. The next. Sorry. Yes. I mentioned about the one of the pillars is economy. So we have to underline about the economy factors in line with the if we see that the U.S. are still sustain or still maintain his their their superpower, because due to the economy as the historical perspective, economic of the U.S. are very, very clear to see that their achievement and their sustainability in economy. So go ahead, please. We have the very limited of time. So this is the era of the U.S. dominations. Okay, why the U.S. after the post-Cold War is the one single majority, the one is only one as a superpower, because the rival, the USSR, in this other side is stepped down or the collapse. So okay, it passed away. This is okay. We know that after I just described about the previous slides. Then the U.S. actually has her privilege as the one single majority in terms of civil power for the several years and at least 2 decades. And then, but the rhetoric has changed in 2009. Why 2009? Okay, if we talk about the economy's factors as the one of the pillars to be a superpower, of course, is the one of the 3 pillars. We know that in 2009, Japan, as the many decades as the second largest world economy, replaced by China. This is, if you take a look, this is the graphic that China and Japan and GDP. If we reverse to GDP or purchasing power parity at the same time, we can see that the Japan actually has made the point in the middle of the 2009 and 2010. So this is the first milestone, I think, for China to make their countries and actually go to the next step at the second largest economy in the world after the US until now. So, okay, please. Please. Next. Okay. This is the just only, okay. It is the descriptions about the economic situation, China compared to Japan and compared to the others. And China and Japan, undeniably, China is the number 1 since the beginning, from the 2010 until now. And Japan is the third largest economy in the world after China. Okay, please. Please. So this is how the superpower compare. You can see, actually, I have limited my view about this only in terms of the economy views. So we can see that the US and China is not so far between the two. Compared with the economy and GDP, of course, it's totally different. But based on the purchasing power parity, the China is very significantly, sharply increased compared with the past years. Okay, go ahead, please. So this is the GDP, and then, okay, I can explain this briefly. It is my view. In my view, it is balance of power in Asia. If you talk about the balance of power in Asia, I think this is to create a new balance, which China as a new, and of course, maybe we can debate afterwards, a game changer. Because the game changer, because the constellations around politics and economy around this area, especially in Asia, is changed because the rise of China. The rise of China is give the pivotal rule in terms of changing the geopolitical and geostrategies around Asia. Okay, please. Please. Right. This is a crucial issue. If you talk about the rebalancing power, if you talk about the geostrategic issue in Asia, we don't deny about the crucial issue, what the crucial issue is. Crucial issue means, at least in my perspective, in my sense, this refers to the South China Sea, because the South China Sea is a very, not in terms of dangers, but it's very strategic. It's in economy, in politics, and of course in military activity and the other as well. Okay, please. So this is, I think, probably we can hear about this from the perspective of China, because Dr. Yang, one a very credible person to explain about what's happening in the South China Sea, if it concerns the deployment of justification and the creating of the many artificial islands there. We know that this is the satellite picture. The development of the artificial island there is very question marks for many, because we don't know actually. I personally, of course, I have some friends from China, and I asked them. So they told me about because due to China have the interest in terms of the national interest. So this is the front of the deployment of China. Like the US in Guam, they do the same way, like the US did in Guam and Hawaii. So we can do it in the South China Sea to build the artificial islands there. Okay, please. Please. All right. So we can, I think we need sketch out this situation rising today in the area of the South China Sea, because China 9-dash line is actually in politically and of course at the global perspective is very I think it's very unclear because a climb is just one side of China. But if we look at the map, the ancient map, as I presented before, we can see that because if we try to understand about the activity of the China, it's not only military activity in this area, South China Sea is the only places for China to access the external of the mainland of China. So, okay, there's the different places out there, like the north. No. I'm not finished it yet. Okay, like the north, China knows, of course, about the north side of the South China Sea, but it's so dangerous because this in East Asia, there's Japan. Japan and China is still now is not in have comments of their perception about the Senkaku Islands, for instance. And then if we look at the center, there is Taiwan. But Taiwan is not the Taiwan per se, because the Taiwan is very close ties with the US. The US directly give the support to protect Taiwan based on the military support. So this is one of the reasons why eventually the South China Sea probably elect to the Chinese perspective, because it's increased to the sea line communications slopes and the free of navigation, for instance, and increase to the Malacca Strait and the area. But the problem is the climb is not accepted by some countries like the Philippines. The Philippines go the law, and then we know that the international arbitration has decided, but no jurisdiction there eventually. Okay, please. Please, go ahead. Sorry. This is military bases. This is a consequences, I think, because the military in the US now it is still maintained. We know that in Southeast Asia, US have several Navy base, military bases, like in Alaska, so far from here, from the South China Sea, and of course in Hawaii too, and Guam as well. Guam is a little bit closer compared to the other to South China Sea. We know that a couple of decades ago in Subic and Clark's, U.S. has the military bases, naval bases, the biggest base outside the U.S. But now it's closed. Yeah? Closed based on the Senate of the U.S. Declared that in 1991 to close the Subic Bay and the Clark's for the Air Force base of the U.S. This is the consequences mean because the rise of tensions around this area could be bring a speculation, of course, this is my view, that stimulate the U.S. to go back to the area. The next slide. So this is the consequences. I mean, it's mean that the area, the Subic Bay, now America is not present there, but now America seeks opportunity to seeking compromise, a new compromise between the Philippines to negotiate the place, probably yes, in order to build the same like they had the past about the naval activity in the Subic area, but it's not definitely decided yet. It's probably maybe the next step the U.S. Thinking about the situations arise over there, and we have to get back to the Southeast Asia to make sure to protect, preserve, and defend our allies, like some other Southeast Asian countries there. Okay, good. Go. Good. This is military power comparison between the two, the U.S. and I think it's not so important, but we can see that take a picture. We can see and understand the composition if you compare between the U.S. and China, especially in the South China Sea, how many there have each the vessel, etc. Okay, good. So this experiencing, okay, yes, it is. I think I have. So no, the next one. So okay. I would like to address this point because it's the most important of why I should address in this occasion. You know that if some of you probably have read the book, Destined for War, wrote by the Graham Allison, a professor, emeritus professor of Harvard University, a very respected professor there. Allison wrote a book in terms of the competition between the China and the US. Okay, it's a book launched by probably 2007 or 2008. There, I have a book, of course. So in the book, Allison tried to describe if these situations is not really controlled by whom, which have to involved in, is a very dangerous. So we can see that the conclusions, one of the conclusions of his book, if you see that the table, the periods, Allison limited his team in the Harvard University to make observations about the probability and at the end, war and not war from the 5 years before now. So the result or the conclusion of his book, in 16 cases, okay, who the ruling power and the rising power competes with each other. And then actually only 4 by the 16 not result no war. No war. But the others, all of them brings and the results the war. So this is the serious problem here. If you see that the US compared with the other countries, US actually won the war, but it's not the point. The point is we have to really careful about the situations in terms of the South China Sea rising out, the other crimes and etc. The slot and fear of navigation and so on. So this is okay. The last one. This is I would like to make it is my point of my presentation. If okay, no one and nobody can imagine if the third World War will be rise or will be happen. But if war happen, South China Sea is based on my own opinion as a potential place. Of course, the other like East Asia, the Korea Peninsula is a problem. It's a very big problem. So I don't see the other places like the Iran. No, I know that the Iran and the US are very high tensions, but it's a difference. And of course, between the India and China, there's maintained the highly tensions before the two. But it's okay. It's no problem. But in South China Sea, there's so many, because it's involved in the superpower like the US and the China, as we described later. It's very, very unbelievable, or I think we don't want to think about it. But storytellings, if we see that the last decade, a century, more than 400 or 500 before century, a long time ago, Peloponnesian War, we know that history tells us that because the ruling power tried to challenge the rule power, it's actually this result of the brain result in terms of war. So like this, the Peloponnesian War, we know that Spartan and Athens in the ancient Greek. So it could be happening in the same situation with the South China Sea, with the different consequences and different. Of course, I think we know that we don't want to, of course, to imagine something happen that in terms of war. So, but the problem is I'm deeply concerned about this, because we know now the issue, if you read or if you hear about the United Nations, the Secretary General, Guterres addressed his statement that war, war benefit no one. And the title of this address to deliver to all of the around the world. So this refers to the South China Sea tensions, like the president of Philippines. Of course, our president from Indonesia is not so definitely addressed this issue. But I think there's many people deeply concerned about what happening in the South China Sea area. It's a very dangerous place. Now, I want we look forward and make preparations about the worst scenario if something happens. Okay, at that point, I'll stop here. Thank you very much. So please, moderator.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Julian. Very interesting presentation indeed, and a very scary too as well. Yeah, especially the last slide. If war, SCS, a potential place. Wow, I hope, it won't happen. Yeah, we are here near from the location. Okay, let's get move to our third speaker. We have here Professor Rifani. Professor Rifani, are you here? Hello. Good afternoon.
Afternoon. Can you
Yeah.
hear me?
Thank you very much for coming, Professor.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me here. Happy to be in Jakarta virtually.
Yes.
Almost able to smell the Jakarta air, which I like.
Do you have a presentation, Professor?
What was that?
PowerPoint.
No. Okay. So I think I have it. I'm recording. Yeah. Recording today.
I think it's difficult to present because we already reached the maximum capacity. Yeah.
Okay.
50 and so maybe it's difficult to present.
Try.
Yeah. Okay. Please.
Okay. All right. Okay. Now let's do the screen share. Present now. Is it present now?
Yes.
And screen, right? That's the one, right? I'm more used to Webex and Zoom.
I'm sorry. Before you present your presentation, let me introduce you. Sorry, I forgot to introduce you. Professor Dr. Rifari Bustami. He's an associate professor, head of Nusantara Malay Archipelago at Center for Policy Research and International Studies, USM. He earned PhD from London School of Economics and Political Science. The field is organizational and development sociology. Her master is from University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee, with the same field, sociology. And he earned his bachelor in Purdue University. The field is also sociology. Area of specialization is number one, Nusantara, or ethnic studies. Organizational studies, or CSR. Three is social research philosophy and methodology. And four is transformative and future studies. Okay. Yeah. You already present your PowerPoint.
Okay.
Please.
Yeah, I have Edward Snowden from Malang to help me here. So there you go. Okay. Can you see my slides?
Yes, we already.
Thank God. All right, thank you very much. Assalamualaikum and selamat siang, good afternoon. Wuhan. We have friends from China as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. Let me present my Santai paper on South China Seas and presenting a Nusantara maritime paradigm. I myself consider myself a Nusantara person because long time ago, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, Brunei, we were part of one big continent, and after the colonizers came, and then they broke us apart, and then now we have different nations, but we do share a long history of shared heritage, shared history, shared spirituality, shared identity. Unfortunately, after the colonizers left, they remained to be successful because that broken part of us has continued on, and then through those holes, those chasms of colonizers, right? And we remain to be disunited in some ways. But thank God, Alhamdulillah, the regeneration effort and is happening organically and as well as by design. And we are coming together in more than one way. We were once one big religious community, spiritual community, cultural community, political, economic community, historical community, a maritime community. Now the linkages are being rebuilt slowly, and we hope that this effort of rebuilding, of regeneration, of reconnecting to ourselves, to our home, will continue on. Yeah, okay. Right. Okay, so right. I will continue on. I should be like that, right? Okay. All right. So I'll present a perspective which we call the Nusantara Maritime Paradigm perspective. Yeah. So let me start with some brief intro, and I think has this the complexities of South China Sea's realities have been captured by the speakers, the esteemed speakers, and I probably should not delve too deep into this, but we do acknowledge, we do understand as much as we can, of course, that there are latent and sometimes overt conflicts occurring in South China Sea, more than one front, and it is a very complex kind of space. Yeah, this South China Sea, seas in fact, right, with this plural there, and in that sense, it makes it a big puzzle to be solved. It's a conundrum, right? To try to realign all the forces together in a square shape, the green with the green, the red with the red, the yellow with the yellow, and that is quite a riddle to solve, and it seems like this Rubik cube is becoming more and more complex with the coming other forces, with coming of other strains of globalization, and different forms of globalization is coming in, and sometimes voluntarily, sometimes by force, sometimes through invitation, sometimes they invite themselves and all that. So we have a situation that has been well articulated by speakers before this, that is potentially explosive. It's something that can pose as a threat to the stability to the region. So it is complex. It is potentially dangerous. We play with this kind of fire in the water. So we take note, and we are cognizant of this situation, and we will need to come up with some possible set of solutions, right? And from here onwards, I will present an alternative paradigm to this whole conundrum. Let me start with what we are stuck with first, right? I begin with 1648, a treaty called the Westphalian Treaty. It's a treaty that basically recognized by historians and social scientists, political scientists, international relations experts as the treaty that brought together European nations, and eventually that is, in a way, is the birth of nation states. And nation states from here onwards are more or less defined by its borders, right? So the borders become, and the territory that the borders protect become the space of sovereignty of nations. So the empires fight among themselves, and they come together with a series of, the Westphalian Treaty is actually a series of understandings and agreements, and they eventually became the dominant paradigm of international relations, becomes the dominant paradigm of territory, becomes the dominant paradigm of sovereignty, which eventuates in, like it or not, the World War, we can argue World War II, and eventually the United Nations, right? So we have a paradigm of relations between community that's defined by borders. And whenever the borders, the territories, the perbatasan, the sempadan in bahasa or perbatasan, they're being encroached, it is seen as a violation of sovereignty oftentimes. Get out of our waters. You have violated our waters. Get out from our waters. Right? You have violated the air of whatever country. Get out from the air. Tenggelamkan kapalnya itu. Right? And we find this interesting because for centuries long, right, people from Sumatra would be crossing these borders, right, and be fishing in close to the Peninsula Malaya, or at that time, and likewise it was happening the same way, right? And what's interesting is it continues to happen, but it's never being mentioned in the news, because if you were to take up this matter further, it become an international incident. But it continues to happen, to occur, and recur many times in our waters, right? But sad to say, the definition of migrants are born more or less the new modern definition of migrants, the new definitions of you and I, they and us, are being defined by this Westphalian paradigm, which is a hegemony of Westphalian hegemony of thinking, hegemony of paradigm between communities, between nation states. And we, in this colonized part of the world, accept that we, the Nusantarans, which one define nation states quite differently from them. Right? We have the mandala system. You remember that? We came to accept them, right? And they arbitrarily draw different lines on our borders, right? The British, the Dutch, the Portuguese, the Spanish came in. So, okay, this is yours, this is mine, right? So much so that we see, in northern Malaysia, Malaysia and Thailand, right? We have a line that's drawn along the river, and you see that the couples, the village is being divided, right? So we have cousins and uncles and aunties and grandpas, grandmas in the same village being divided by this British border that's called territory, right? And divide between two nations, and they divide the villages as well. And it's even sillier to imagine in Kalimantan itself, we see, that you can cook in Indonesian kitchen and dine in Malaysian living room, because the house is divided along the border of Indonesia and Malaysia. Why? Because we have this smart, ingenious, super intelligent British and Dutch draw a line on the house dividing Indonesia and Malaysia. So as the same household, they cross this line, they become Indonesian, they cross this line, then Malaysia. Cross the line, Indonesia, cross the line, Malaysia. So they can live in two countries in the one house, right? So that's the genius or the Western hegemonic Westphalian paradigm. What I like to introduce is slightly different, which is the Nusantara Maritime paradigm, right? Jadi kita ni orang Nusantara gitu. Right? The Nusantara Maritime paradigm approaches and looks at the world somewhat differently. Right? I like to begin the Nusantara thing with different historical roots. Mempunyai akar-akar sejarah yang berbeza-beza gitu. I'm learning my Indonesian language, so if I'm wrong, please correct me. If you look at the historical sociological perspective, right, we begin with Sumpah Palapa, Oath of Palapa, Majapahit Oath, right? Gajah Mada, the prime minister, if you will, or the prime minister of the then king, Haji Muruk, said tidak akan makan yang kenyang, tidak makan tidur yang lena itu, selagi tidak bersatunya Nusantara. As long as Nusantara is not united under Gajah Mada, he will not stop. He will not eat well. He will not sleep well. And he was defined. Nusantara is defined as a space that ranges. Am I connecting?
Herlina. Herlina. Alfi tolong di-mute dulu itu, Alfi.
Oh ya, oke.
Herlina.
Kayaknya ada Gojek di sana ada. I'm Gojek and
Sorry, Professor.
GoFood and all that. Sorry. So you are presenting. So more or less with this sumpah, with this of Gajah Mada in 1334, Nusantara was born. At least the term Nusantara under the concept of Gajah Mada, and that was. But if you look at the history, the Nusantara, the copper plates of Nusantara was found even in 1305. So the idea of Nusantara, the imagination of Nusantara, the imagined community of Nusantara was there even before Sumpah Palapa, and Nusantara history even extends up to the Sulu government, Sulu Sultan. At that time was not Sulu, but in the Sulu seas. So we have the Nusantara as one of our historical roots from Sumpah Palapa. But if you go beyond history, go further behind, right? Time travel, the prehistoric seas. We can see that the Nusantara maritime paradigm, right, begins even much further, much longer than that. It began with Sunda land, or the Benua Sunda or Pentas Sunda. And you can see in the slide, right, the Sunda land was once a big continent, right? It's not divided into many parts of islands yet, except for Sulawesi. But at that time, Kalimantan, Jawa, and Sumatra, and Semenanjung, Malaya, and all that was part of a big continent. And that was in, we are talking about dry land 25,000 BC, right? And that was a long time ago. And we already exist then. In fact, if you like to know the Keris thing, right? One of the Kesaktian, the mystical part of the Keris is that it is made from not Earth technology, is made of outer space technology too. And that technology is using asteroid metal. And then the Pandai Besi, the people who are the blacksmith of the Keris, of the dagger that's originated from Nusantara, had the technology to smelt and melt and combine different metal together. And that is a superb technology. And they combined in the Keris. And at that time, there were many other technologies that is attributed to the people back then. And we are talking about 25,000 years ago. And in fact, there are other books that talk about this period, and it's not written by us, written by Westerners. And they say in Eden is actually in the tropics, and tropics is actually us. Right? In some ways, we are the original Aquaman, if you like to know. Right? This is where we are, and we see we separate after the a series of volcanic eruptions, and as well as floods. The continent, the Sunda continent, the Sunda basin broke apart, right? And then we became, some of us stayed on the land and the mountains, and some of us became the people of the sea, and a lot of us travel and have stories about the sea. And this is a long time ago, right? And the whole idea of Nusantara maritime paradigm slowly evolved and emerged as a dominant paradigm of Perantaus, right? And then due to the massive flooding and great majority of the people of Sunda land, when we talk about Sunda, we're not just talking about Bandung, the beautiful people of Bandung, and then Jawa Barat, right, and Sundanese and all that. We're talking about the big continent. So we are all part of this big continent, right? Of course, Bandung, Jawa Barat tetap bagian daripadanya. The people of Sunda land migrated to distant lands, up north to Taiwan and China in the north, and south to New Zealand, and the Pacific and Easter Islands in the east, as well as Madagascar in the west. In these places, they became early settlers, aka natives. So you can find, the people in New Zealand and who dance that kind of thing, they are actually ethnically, genetically related to us. Even as far as Hawaii, they are genetically related to us. So the rest remain behind, and struggle with the new landscape and new ecosystem, and the experiences are even recorded in flood myth and migration folklores, right? Now, this is a professor, his name is Professor Oppenheimer. If some would know, he talks about the nomadic people and all that. So he debunked the whole out of Taiwan theory that talks about us, the Nusantara people, right, originating from Taiwan. So it's actually wrong. There are scientific facts to support of the out of Sunda land theory. So and it's especially true. You can read his book Eden in the East, right? The drowning of a continent of Southeast Asia, and there is strong DNA proof for that. And there have been extended research in it. I'm actually part of the research as well. And Oppenheimer is a scientist, also in university, and a former visiting professor in my university here, in University of Science Malaysia. And his theory is based on findings from history, archaeology, oceanography, genetics, linguistics, and folklore. But his study is mainly about DNA. And he has shown that we are talking about a big part of Nusantara, including the Papuans, right? If you think Papuans are not from a different part of the world, no, they are genetically related to us, right? Only 7% of our gene pool comes from outside, right? So, and it is being traced that even the whole idea of genetic flows from the the south to the north, not the north to the south, right? It is proven scientifically. So you can see genetic sequencing. The whole idea of out of Taiwan, that we came from Taiwan, that's wrong. Now, some of us actually traveled back from Taiwan to Nusantara, but the historical fact and scientific fact has proven that it is from Sunda land that we flow out, even to Taiwan and China and New Zealand and Hawaii and the Polynesian islands and Madagascar. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about Nusantara maritime paradigm. So we are very similar to the Mediterranean community. Mediterranean actually means media terra, which means media is middle, terra is land. And in Nusantara is a concept which is fascinating. Right? We have a concept to describe ourselves as the people in between islands. Nusa Islands, Tara, Antara, between islands, right? And you look at Southeast Asia, we look at Nusantara, right? The Sulu Sea, Celebes Sea, Banda Sea, Arafura Sea, the Java Sea, Andaman Sea, South China Sea. They're all seas surrounded by land. That's a definition of Mediterranean. What does it mean? It means it's narrow access to waters. The access to water is not easy. And by implication, if you have nation borders defined by seas, you will definitely entrapping yourself into international conflict. So Nusantara did not have this Westphalian concept of sea borders, do not have the concept of territories defined, empires defined by the borders. Nusantara a long time ago had the concept of empires defined by the center, not at the border. And we look at our kampong concept, our village, right? Which a lot of our villages do not have fences. In fact, we roam freely from one house to another, right? Because the borders are not defined as being private, right? The public space, the commons, the shared resources, the shared space is very much part of the Nusantara maritime paradigm. And if you look at Southeast Asia, if you look at South China Sea, it is a Mediterranean kind of sea when you have all these different rocks and islands and all emerging, right? And that's why we have different claims. And why? Because we have this hegemony of Westphalian paradigm that is dominating us, that's brainwashing us, telling us that this is mine, this is yours, this is yours, it's mine, don't touch mine, this is yours, that kind of thing. This is my fish, that's not your fish, that kind of thing. So we lost the sense of Nusantara, the sense of Nusantara spirit. And then eventually we get into conflicts, right? So the Nusantara paradigm, the Antara Nusa, the Mediterranean paradigm, the Malayo archipelago, is a socio-economic perantau habitat. Why do we say perantau? Because we were not migrants. We are like dolphins swimming, roaming around the waters, oceans. The sea is our land, the land is our sea. Samudra itu tanah kita, tanah itu samudra kita. Kita bangsa bahari. Maritime society, we are maritime society. And our relation with the water is very, very, very strong. We call our home tanah airku, tanah air, right? Not just homeland, heartland, we call it tanah air. Why? Because air is very strong. It's part of us. Tanah is part of us. We understand that Zhongguo have Zhenhe or China has Zhenghe, right? But in Nusantara, right, the feminist movement has started long time ago. It's not even a movement. Right? Laksmana Malahayati, Panglima Perang Kerajaan Aceh, who actually led more than 100 armada of ships to drive away the Portuguese and Dutch. I mean, this is a woman admiral, in the 1500s, right? Now they're talking about affirmative action. They're concerned about this judge passed away who fight for women's rights. Nusantarans, the Nusantara community, we love our women. We respect our women. We uphold our women. They are not just people who are our mothers, but they are pahlawan. They are warriors. They are admirals, right? And we have Hang Tuah. In Surabaya, we have known as Hang Tuah and all that. And it is a university. It's a university for the Navy. Hang Tuah is also Laksmana. So we have who are actually a diplomat as well. So if China has Zhenhe, right, Sampokong, if you go to Semarang, you see Sampokong there. Right? And in Surabaya, we also have Masjid Cengho. Yeah, all these emirals are also diplomats, right? And what the Nusantara maritime paradigm has is that we share our oceans. We operate from the shared prosperity paradigm. So we share our ocean. Doesn't mean that we didn't have wars between empires. We had wars between empires, but the war was not about who conquered what piece of rock in the middle of the ocean. Right? Of course, you can argue there is no oil at that time yet, right, and all that. But it was not because of that. It was because of a belief system that the ocean is a shared space. Because the belief system that borders do not define the sovereignty. It's the power at the center that defines the sovereignty, right? And that is, in a way, is part of the Mandala system, and that is part of the Nusantara maritime paradigm, which is quite different from the paradigm of a Westphalian nation state, right? So the Nusantara maritime paradigm, you look, right, even in the land, right, we see if the classic Nusantara city would not look like Kuala Lumpur or Pulau Pinang or Surabaya, where you have TP1, TP2, TP3, TP3. TP is Tunjangan Plaza, Tunjangan Plaza 1. Enough, you have Tunjangan Plaza 2, then you have Tunjangan 3. You keep on building malls and malls and malls in Jakarta. You have huge malls, right? And that's not a Nusantara model. A good Nusantara model before colonization, I think the closest would be like Jogja. See, the Jogja has a different concept of property. The kraton, and around the kraton itself, there's this komunitas, pengabdian. Yeah? So you can live in that community, but you do not own that property. UGM, Universitas Gajah Mada, the land is owned by the king, the sultan, right? But it can be used for in fact, if you look at UGM, originally it's in the kraton, in the palace itself, and the whole idea of non-privatized land, meaning land that's being shared, commons, public goods, right, is a very common concept. This shared resource, shared prosperity is a very common concept in Nusantara. And the Nusantara maritime paradigm promotes this idea of sharedness. Even the kitchen, you can go to the kraton's kitchen, the palace kitchen, and have drinks and order food over there, right? I've been there many times, not too many times. I like to go more. like a few times, right? And I enjoyed being there. And there are times even the king comes down and visits the citizens, and then there's the beauty of it, right? There's the beauty of Nusantara Maritime Paradigm. And if you look at Putrajaya, the new city in Malaysia, the administrative center of Malaysia, right? The concept of common space is being recreated, right? And it's not easy to recreate that because we have colonized ourselves, and it's hard to decolonize ourselves, right? And I'm concerned that Nusantara will continue to be colonized to the extent that the Nusantara spirit and Nusantara paradigm eventually perish. Next. Before I continue on, and my simple message, and the takeaway from my presentation is this: 10 points. And our message to the world: Nusantara is our home, our tanah air. We are bangsa bahari, seafarers who roam and guard the waters. Number 2. Number 3, we have been here for a long, long time, even before history. Number 4, we duly respect and recognize giants out there. There's giants in the north, giants in the south, giants in the west, giants in the east, and they're combining together in different ways, right? And we kindly invite them, enter our home, and we will welcome you. And that's Nusantara spirit. We welcome our guests. Please kindly do not occupy our home. I repeat that. Please kindly do not occupy our home. Right? We are not giants like you all, but please do not occupy our home. We are willing to share our prosperity and hospitality. Point number 7. We are willing to share our prosperity and hospitality. And if you go to Indonesia, they are so hospitable people. It's amazing. I love the hospitality there. I remember I said, this is like so special. You know, I'm afraid that one day we will lose that kind of warmth, that kind of hospitality, that kind of spirit. Right. Number 8, we just want to be independent and not being colonized again and again. Enough. Malaysia has been colonized by the Portuguese, and then the Dutch, and then the British, and then the Japanese, and then the British again. Enough. We do not want to be colonized again, please. Right? So number 9, we are neighbors. Let's live peacefully. Let's live with peace and dignity. There are giants out there. Number 10, and that is the creed of our Nusantara Maritime Paradigm. Sekian, terima kasih. Jales Deva Jaya Mehe. In the sea, we will succeed. Thank you very much. And selected references and credits to those people out there.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you very much. Very interesting presentation, Professor Ripani. Yeah. Before we go to the next speaker, may I give my question to you, Professor?
Yes. Monggo, mangga, silakan. Ayo, yuk.
So, yeah, it is a warming up question. So historically, according to the Nusantara concept that you are just explained to us, are you trying to say that the SCS is actually an area belonging to the countries in the ASEAN regions, which was previously is one whole land, one land, one area, and thus it will be the Westphalian Treaty will be no longer effective, or no longer. What do you think about this? Is it true that you want to try like that? That it is actually historically belong to the ASEAN countries, which is based on the Nusantara concept, Professor?
Yeah. Let me understand your question correctly. You're saying that, am I saying that this South China Sea is part of us? The answer is yes. Yes, South China Sea is part of those. It's called Nanyang. Right? It so happened that I went to Chinese school from primary up to secondary school. So Nanyang means the South Sea, right? But if you see how the definition of Nanyang in year 2016, the basis of the claims is not necessarily based on sovereignty. It's not on sovereign land or sovereign water. It's more on historic waters, historic seas. So historic seas, they actually quoted some islands, I think Hansha Islands and all that. But so the argument is based on historical argument as well as cultural to some extent. We have a longer historical claim, we have a longer cultural claim to the space. But then the beauty of South China Sea is that it has South China in its name, right? But we are so smart as Nusantara people, but we never unite ourselves and call this Southeast Asian Sea or Nusantara Sea, right? Because historical rationality or whatever. But what I'm saying is that, number one, that space is ours and has been for ours for a long, long time. It has been named South China Sea, but it is originally ours. We have proof of ours, scientific proof of ours, number one. Number two is that the Mediterranean concept of space is very hard to use the Westphalian concept, Westphalian paradigm, to come up with a harmonious arrangement, right? And we know when the giants come in, and I mean, we look at the situation in Philippines, we look at the situation here, and although we don't speak in one voice necessarily all the time, ASEAN, right? But we know when a bully comes in, we know a bully from the west, a bully from the east, now the bully in the west and east coming together, or north. No, we feel that. Come on, please don't bully us, please lah, please, bawa Pak ya, tolong lah, gitu ya. please.
Okay. We will continue later, Professor. Let's continue with the fourth speaker, which is Pak Rudi, Dr. Rudi Sukandar. Pak Rudi, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you, not against you.
Okay. Please, Pak Rudi, present your presentation. Okay, I will please. Professor, okay. I will try to present your presentation.
I can present mine. Saya coba dulu Pak Rendro.
Okay.
Let me see. Bisa dilihat?
Ya, bisa Pak.
Oke. Mau coba pakai introduction dulu atau langsung aja?
Saya perlu perkenalkan saya kira Pak ya. I need to introduce you. Just a minute, Pak Rudi. Very brief. Dr. Rudi Sukandar. Pak Rudi ini is Director of LSPR Center for Research Publication Community Service at LSPR Institute of Communication and Business, Jakarta. He obtained his doctoral degree from the School of Communication Studies, Ohio University, USA, specializing in relating and organizing intercultural communication and conflict. His research focuses on communal and international conflict, interpersonal communication, pop culture, and media studies. He also have postdoctoral courses, among others, included the Comprehensive Crisis Management at Asia Pacific Center for Security Studies in 2015, and UNITAR training program in peacemaking and preventive diplomacy for the Asia Pacific region in 2016. That's all. Pak Rudi, silahkan.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Rendro, for your time. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to thank all the previous speakers who have provided a really good introduction and also some background on South China Sea. And I got two notes for Professor Rifani. Rifani, I got two notes for you. One, I just had Padang's food for lunch. And number two, since you mentioned about Admiral Malahayati, what's really interesting is that Malahayati recruited the widows of the Acehese men who were killed by the Portuguese. So she made what they call as a widows battalion in Ongbale. That's really interesting part of the history about Malahayati too. Okay, now let me just go into my presentation. I have been thinking about before making this. I have had a thought about presenting conflict on South China Sea, as I have written several articles on that. But then since most of us have already talked about it, and then decided that maybe I should go into another direction. And then as part of the being communication student and communication scholar, then I just for this I would like to see that from another perspective, from another dimension, that is looking at into South China Sea as competing narratives in the media. I will not dwell more into the theories, because previous presenters have talked about this. Instead, I'm just trying to look at into how South China Sea is portrayed in the media. And then so hold on, yeah. So the data that I collected coming from the Straits Times. This is quite interesting reason for me to choose the Straits Times, which is published in Singapore, because why I didn't choose Indonesian Jakarta Post, for example, because I think that there is something related to what is it, the conflict between, we call it the conflict between Indonesia and China and some other countries in ASEAN member states. For example, they have some conflicts regarding South China Sea in South China Sea with China. So therefore, I just think that maybe I should pick the media from a country that doesn't have direct conflict with China in South China Sea. So that's why that I picked the Straits Times. The monitoring durations of the data is from the media reporting from July till September 2020. So it says about 3 months of data that I have viewed, and then let's see that how it goes. Now, to think when we look at into the report from the media, then we always see that what we call as competing narratives. In the competing narratives, we always see that one part just start to give a fiery rhetoric about one another. I will give you some examples about this later. And then also some other narrative is a support giving narrative. What I mean here is that some statements were provided by the parties involved in conflict in South China Sea, taking the side with one party or another in order to provide their positions to anyone who's involved in the conflict. Now let me just start with case number one. For example, when we look at into the fiery rhetoric, this is just an example. The headlines from the news that I studied. For example, we can see that U.S. to back nations that say China violated their South China Sea claims. This is from the U.S. Perspective. And then U.S. blacklist Chinese individuals, and then Pentagon slams Chinese missile launches in South China Sea, and then U.S. calls China the new. This is quite interesting. I'll leave it till the end. And then from the China part, based on the report in the news stating by the Straits Times, one top China diplomat stated that U.S. becoming the key driver of militarizations in South China Sea. and then also U.S. destroying peace, stability in South China Sea. Now, besides all the back and forth spat between the two officials from the officials from the two countries, presented by the media, the Straits Times. What's really interesting to me is that even in this case, that the U.S. also went back into the history, calling China as the new East India company at sea. I'm not really sure how the British thinks about this, and also probably it might be interesting to see that too. China as a country, for example, is given an analogy to a company that had been known in the past to be the tools for the colonizations. So this is an examples how we can see that the going back and forth, the spat between the U.S. and China, for example, regarding South China Sea will not end soon. And then I'm just trying to relate to Professor Julian mentions with the last slide about the war, and I think a long time ago the Hollywood would like to make a scenario about the World War III, and then the first they started with during the Cold War. They just want to connect that with what really happening between West Germany and East Germany, and then after that they move into somewhere else, into Korea, and then the Middle East. And I think right now they got more ideas about how World War III could happen, that is in South China Sea. So this is an example on how the media are reporting the competing narratives between parties. Especially, we can see that we can see China and U.S. as the giant, the biggest players in the South China Sea. The next one is an example of the news, and also you can see that from this headline from the Straits Times. Then we can see that some countries, the member state of ASEAN, for example, and also outside ASEAN, also has taken a side with an actor that they think can support their cause. For example, Vietnam backs U.S. role in South China Sea, rebuffing Beijing at ASEAN meeting. ASEAN meeting that just happened a couple of weeks ago. And then I think that if you read the news, that it also became one forum to just express the dissatisfactions of several member states of ASEAN about the hegemony of China in South China Sea. And then another examples on how a country, for example, sides with the actor that they think can support them is in the Philippines, for example, on how Duterte gets stuff from China, leading back to old ally America. And also there's an interesting part on how the non-claimant member states like India, for example, also hold exercise with the U.S. Carry limits in tightening the cooperation in South China Sea. This some examples on how we can see the competing narratives that happens, the fiery rhetoric and support-giving rhetoric can also be seen clearly in reports in the media. I have not been able to find any reports from in July till September 2020 for the past 3 months of any countries that take side or support China in this case. But I think if we go back way into a few years back, then we might be able to find some countries that support China's claim on South China Sea. And the next part is part of the things that I found during the analysis is what we call the ambiguous narratives. These are the narratives that we can that we have seen in the report of media, as the media trying to cover the statement coming from the officials of each country of the ASEAN member states. Some of the characteristics that we found in the reports, especially in terms of ambiguous narratives. For example, we can see that in inconsistent rhetoric that we see. So there is that inconsistent rhetoric means that they keep changing. I will give some example later about the inconsistent rhetoric about changing the previous statement provided by other officials. So at some point that we can see that one statement can easily be changed by other officials in just a matter of days, a matter of hours, and a matter of days. So it just creates the impressions and also create the image that the rhetoric that a country regarding South China Sea is a bit inconsistent in some ways. The second one, the characteristic that I found was there is a mixed message there. Yes, we don't like China becoming a hegemony in South China Sea, but at the same time, we also like China to cooperate with us. So I think this creates problem, especially to people, the readers, the common people who just look things from trying to figure out what is the positions of our country. And then because the mixed message that they have, sometimes they just don't understand how or what the government is planning to do regarding the conflict that really happened. So the mixed message here can be found also easily in the news report by the media. And another one is the characteristic that I found in terms of the narratives in the report by the media is what we call a strategic ambiguity. So usually in some ways the media quoted statements from of government officials, for example, but usually the government officials do not give very clear explanations about what the position is all about. Sometimes they just give a very ambiguous statement, just trying to make sure that they don't really put a very specific terms that may jeopardize their position. So these three characteristics that I found in ambiguous narratives can be seen in the next example that I can show you. The first one, in the case of the Philippines, one example. These are the reports from, again, the Straits Times. As you can see that we have a different tone of news message there by as the media quoted the statements by the Filipinos officials. For example, the Philippines urges amicable approach to Beijing over South China Sea. Well, we should take a much more friendly approach. But at the same time, during a couple of days, and then this one was mostly taken in August. Defying China, the Philippines continue patrolling Spratlys in South China Sea. And also, the Philippines minister accuses China of fabricating South China Sea claims. And another one that is also quite interesting is that the last one, the Philippines say it won't halt project with China firms blacklisted by the US. So after claiming that they will take leaning toward its allies, the US, but at the same time, the Philippines also say that no, we still have projects run by the Chinese firm that were blacklisted by the US. So this is an example on how we can see that the inconsistent rhetoric and the mixed message is there when the Philippines just talk about the issues in South China Sea. Although for the past few months, I think the Philippines have taken a much stronger positions toward China in terms of the issues in Spratly Islands, for example. But still, we see that in the media, then the message is quite mixed sometimes. The next one, in the case of Malaysia, for example, this is quite interesting because Malaysia issues rare rebuke against China over South China Sea. So yeah, Malaysia seldom give a strong statement against China over issues in South China Sea. And then as KL rejects Beijing claims in South China Sea, but at the same time, in a short span amount of time, now we can see that Malaysian Prime Minister Muhyiddin meets China's defense minister on bilateral cooperation. So again, when we take a look at that, yes, there is quite a strong statement against South China Sea, but at the same time, and then there is also talk about bilateral cooperation. So still, I mean, for the readers, then they might find that this is quite a different tone in approaching the issues in South China Sea. And then the next one is Malaysian foreign ministers say no Chinese vessel intrusion in last 100 days. But ex-minister rebuts him. Again, this is quite interesting coming from a Malaysian official sort of supporting Chinese positions of not intruding in Malaysian water, for example. But at the same time, there's other party who says that no, that was not true. And the next one, this is the last of my slide today, is how about Indonesian case? Interestingly enough, about 5 years ago, there was I attended a conference, and then there was a questions in the conference that was about South China Sea. There was a question at the time whether or not Indonesia and China is a next door neighbor. Well, before the 9 dash line, then the answer to that was actually no. But with the more and stronger position by China to claim the 9 dash line, for example, suddenly we are a next door neighbor with China. And then when we take a look at that, especially on how the media presented that, and then we can see on how we always find the mixed message too here, especially when we try to make sense about what's really happening here. One time that Indonesia took a very strong stance against China, but at the same time, they also a smooth talk about try to have a much better and also much more beneficial cooperation with China. And I think the one that, if I may add, I didn't put it here, is that what's really interesting was a couple of weeks ago when this incident happened, and then the next day I found a statement from Indonesia in the media stating that Indonesia doesn't have any problem with China. And I think, again, going back into the narratives that we have here is actually just the mixed message that is really happening, especially when we take a look at that from the media reports that. And for me, again, as a scholar of communication, a scholar of conflict, for example, this is quite interesting and can be a really good way for us to learn more about how the countries who are involved in the issues of China Sea try to win the narratives, and then try to win the way to persuade other people, for example, through the narratives that they have as reported by the media. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Pak Rendro, back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Rudi Sukandar. It's a very nice presentation. Let's move to the last speaker here. We have Dr. Ari Widodo. Dr. Ari Widodo, are you here with us? Hello, Pak Ari. Hello, Pak Ari. Unmute, Pak Ari.
Yeah, I know, Pak. Sorry, it's a bit problem on that. I thought Pak Ari first.
Okay. Halo, Pak Ari.
Pak Arif, Pak.
Oh, Pak Arif dulu ya?
Iya.
Okay, our guest. Sorry, Pak Arif. Pak Arif, we have... Arif, Pak Arif?
Yes.
Yes, sorry Pak. Ya, kita harus hargai tamu duluan nih. Pak Arif, saya perkenalkan dulu ya. I would like to introduce our fourth speaker, Muhammad Arif, MSc. He's a researcher of ASEAN Studies Program at the Habibie Center. He earned MSc Strategic Studies from Rajaratnam School of International Studies in Singapore, and have a BA from International Relations Universitas Indonesia Jakarta. He is also managing editor of Global Journal Politik Indonesia and also lecturer of Department of International Relations, Universitas Indonesia Jakarta since 2016. Oke, Pak Arif, silahkan go ahead with your presentation.
Can you see my slide?
Yes, we can.
Why cannot I see my slide?
It's too small.
Okay?
Okay, yeah.
Hello?
Ya, silakan Pak Arif.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Good afternoon, everyone. So a little bit of disclaimer, I haven't really updated my research on the South China Sea thoroughly in the last couple of years. So security developments in the recent security developments in the South China Sea. This is a couple of points that I wish to discuss today. I think previous speakers have done incredible jobs in explaining from different dimensions of how the situation in the South China Sea develops over time. But I think there is always a need for everyone to to go back to basic and remember why we talk about South China Sea in the first place. So I think it's always important to remember why sea matters in this regard, why South China Sea matters, and I'm going to touch a little bit about the recent and key developments in South China Sea, and also how Indonesia perceives South China Sea and the recent development in this policy regarding the South China Sea. So basically, despite being, as Professor Rifani explained before, despite a long history of being maritime communities, maritime society in this part of the region, I think there's always this ignorance with regard to that history and with regard to how we to the sea. So it's important to remember for us in this part of the region, especially in this country. So sea serves three important roles for humanity. Actually, the first is a source of resources. Of course, you got fish, you got oil, you got gas. In fact, that's one of the stories that have been going around when we talk about South China Sea, right? How the oil reserves and the gas reserves in the South China Sea, it's rich with oil and gas reserves. It's rich with fish, and that's why everything is clashing over the sea in the South. So sea is as a resource. And the second thing we'll see is sea is a medium of communication. By this I mean maybe to make it the around us to we see maybe you're joining this webinar with your laptop, are that phones and that laptops and that computers are shipped to you through a sea, because seaborne trade is until today is still the most economic and the most effective way of transporting goods. Is still a lot cheaper than transporting goods via air or via land. So sea is still the most effective way of trading between countries, and that's why we see if we pay a visit to Tanjung Priok, for example, or to Bahuni, if you go to Sumatra by land, you see how the traffic, or if you maybe some of us to Malaysia, for example, we can see in the Strait of Singapore or Strait of Batam, for example, there's a lot of tankers and big vessels waiting to port. So sea is important in that matters. And when it comes to South China Sea, this fact is even more relevant. We talk about how countries in East Asia and this region are very dependent on the South China Sea. Their transportation, their goods, of their energy, of their oils. 80% of oil that go to China, to Japan, to South Korea go through the South China Sea. It's not surprising that China, Japan, Korea, and other countries in this region plays a very important, plays a high priority in the South China Sea, because it's very important for them. And sea is also a medium of dominion. Using the word of naval historian Geoffrey Taylor, over since forever, since centuries ago, people have been using seas to dominate others. Since the era of colonialism and until today, sea has been important in that regard. You dominate others by blockading trade to that country, for example, or by if we follow the development of South China Sea in the Taiwan-China relations, for example, how the U.S. Once in a while sail their aircraft carriers through the Taiwan Strait, or this couple of months ago in the South China Sea, it carries a symbolic message. When you sail your biggest naval vessels into a region that is conflicted, you send a symbolic message that you don't want to be dominated, or you want your interests to be respected, and so on and so forth. So sea has been important in that regard, as resources, as a medium of communication, and medium of dominion. And all of these three characteristics are even more relevant when we talk about the South China Sea. Yeah, right. I mean, I'm pretty sure not all of us here are paying attention to South China Sea as part of our academic exercise or as a casual reading. So I think it's just a reminder of how the things in South China Sea has been developed over time. It's obviously not a new thing, South China Sea. It is getting more complicated recent years for reasons that I want to talk later, but it's not a new thing. The Chinese nationalist government, which later, of course, flew to Taiwan in 1947, already marks its claims in the South China Sea by a map which then still had 11 dashes. We know now. We now know the 9-dash line, the 9-dash line map. But back then it was 11 dash line. Then 47, China claims Paracel Island. So in the South China Sea, you have two biggest group of islands: the Paracel Islands in the north and the Spratly Islands in the south. In 1947, China first lays its claim in the Paracel Islands. 1982. The Law of the Sea, the United Convention on the Law of the Sea is established. It is really important in this regard, because whenever you hear people saying that some countries doing something illegally in the South China Sea, chances are they're referring to the Law of the Sea. And it is also important for Indonesia, especially because the very territorial integrity of this country is dependent on the adherence to UNCLOS by international community. So, as an archipelagic state, I mean, we take the notion for granted, right? As an archipelagic state, Indonesia is the biggest archipelagic country. There is not always, believe it or not, before before 1980, so before Juanda Declaration, for example, we were not an archipelagic country in that sense. Seas between our islands back then was considered international waters rather than our territorial waters. Only after UNCLOS passed in 1990s, there is an official recognition by international community that Indonesia is an archipelagic country. So UNCLOS is very important for Indonesia in that matters. 1998, China established physical presence in the Spratlys, and then during these years, it was about China and Vietnam and South China Sea. The clashes was always about China and Vietnam. Only in 1996 involved country other than Vietnam, which was the Philippines in the Mischief Reef in the Spratlys. And in 2002, the ASEAN country and China agree on the so-called Declaration, the Code of Conduct in the South China Sea. Some of us may be familiar with this. Basically, that ASEAN countries and China agree that they agree that there's something to work on in the South China Sea, there's something conflictual in the South China Sea, and that everything should restrain themselves from using force to change the status quo. And the next step from this is the, as Professor Yan mentioned before, is the conclusion, the actual code of conduct. They're still working on it until today. 2009, interesting development of 2009 when Malaysia and Vietnam submit to the UN for the extended continental shelf. So continental shelf is basically a continuation of the land that can go to 200 nautical miles from your shore, that states are allowed to propose to have an extended continental shelf, and that's what Malaysia and Vietnam did in 2009. They proposed to submit continental shelf, and China objected the submission, and with the objection, a map which was regarded, I think, the first map that really depicts or shows China's claims within the area. Then we now know as the 9-dash line. In 2012, the Scarborough Shoal incident between China and the Philippines, and 2012 also, 3 months after the incident in Scarborough Shoal, ASEAN infamously fails to issue a communique after the summit. And 2016, of course, the Permanent Arbitration Court rules against China in the case of China v. Philippines, basically saying that the 9-dash line claim based on UNCLOS, and that no features in the sea can be treated as island, and hence no exclusive economic zones can be generated from the features in the Spratlys. 2020, of course, as mentioned before, China establishes the two administrative districts in the South China Sea. And also the latest development, which is quite interesting, I think, is the Battle of Diplomatic Notes, also mentioned before by Professor Yan, how suddenly ASEAN countries, namely Vietnam, Malaysia, and Indonesia, together, they submitted individually, but in the very short span of time, they submit a protest and note verbal against Chinese claims. And in that note verbals, these countries refers to the 2016 tribunal ruling, which for Indonesia's case is quite important, because if I'm not mistaken, that was the first time that Indonesia in official document mentioned about the 2016 tribunal ruling when they talk about South China Sea. So why South China before is a major maritime trade and energy supply route. So South China Sea is I think we now know that South China Sea is very complicated issues. It's a multi-layered issues. We cannot approach it from a single academic background, of course. So I think we should appreciate this webinar, which take an approach of multi-dimensional approach. I think it's very important when we talk about South China Sea. It's a major maritime trade, so you need to understand economics a little bit when you talk about South China Sea. There is, of course, unresolved maritime boundaries in the South China Sea. After UNCLOS, countries are basically allowed to draw exclusive economic zones. But then, of course, when countries draw their exclusive economic zone, chances are the EEZ would overlap with other countries' EEZ, and they need to settle it bilaterally or through courts. And that's what happened in South China Sea. There's unresolved maritime boundaries, so you need to have a little bit of background in international law and maritime law. And the third point that makes South China Sea is that there is a chance of the so-called hegemonic transition. But Julian mentioned touch about this before. By the way, it's a very honor for me to speak alongside Pak Julian. When I joined, when I got into FISIP UI in 2009, it was Pak Julian who was the vice dean and gave the welcoming speech for the new students. So it's really an honor. And anyway, so as people talk about hegemonic transition in the South China Sea, there's a China that is rising, that is going to replace the United States as the hegemon, and the locus or the battlefield is going to be in the South China Sea. Chances are it's going to be in the South China Sea. Should there be a conflict between the U.S. and the South China Sea, it would most probably take place in this part of the world. And of course, it's not always about the great powers. It's not always about China and powers that are increasingly outward looking. They are increasingly aware about what is going on in their surrounding. Indonesia, Vietnam, Philippines. These are countries that are economically growing, financial space to fund their military modernization. They're increasingly outward looking. They don't just want to be they want to have a say in how things develop in the South China Sea, and it makes really things complicated. And the recent and key developments in South China Sea, I think also what we can expect in the near future in the South China Sea is that there is a growing assertiveness from China despite the pandemic, of course, as mentioned before by Professor Yan, or maybe because of the pandemic. And I think I wanna highlight what I'm trying to say is that from a theoretical perspective, I'm trained as an international relations. I'm trained in international relations. Yes, Pak.
We have 15 minutes left.
Oh ya.
Ya, bisa dipercepat, Pak. Okay. Masih ada Pak Ari Widodo belum kebagian.
Oh ya.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what I'm trying to say is that what is happening in South China Sea is basically a normal thing, quote unquote. China is growing, and when you're growing, you want to, assert your interests trying to block other countries from interfering in your own backyard. That's what Indonesia did in 1960s, for example. We tried to dominate our neighbors, and it's a normal thing when China is trying to dominate others. And it's also a normal thing that that the status quo countries, the hegemonic country of the US, is trying to counter-react to it by gathering alliance and all that. There is a gray zone activities. I think there's a lot to talk about this actually, but I think for the limited time, I just skip it. There's a regained momentum for ASEAN this year. I think in the last summit, ASEAN came up with quite strong words when it comes to South China Sea. And of course, we hear about how ASEAN trying to make this as a multilateral thing, while China trying to make this as a bilateral thing. What I'm trying to say is that it's also a normal thing. When you are a great power, you want to have control. What US is doing with its alliance system in this region with Japan, Taiwan, and South Korea is exactly that. So when you're a great power and you deal with small powers, you prefer to have bilateral relations rather than multilateral relations, and vice versa. For small powers, if you want to have more influence when you're dealing with great powers, you prefer to do it in multilateral context. So we're gonna see this tension between bilateral approach and multilateral approach continue in the future. Indonesia and South China Sea, of course. I think the time is over. But basically, there is a growing attention from the part of Indonesia to there is increasing orientation, outward-looking orientation from the part of Indonesia. We can see it from the patterns of military modernization and how the forces are deployed in Indonesia. Emphasis on territorial integrity. President flew to Natuna and all that, having a meeting on board of a naval vessel, sending messages to China and all that. Global maritime fulcrum. And as I mentioned before, there's always a strategic value of international law and rule-based order for Indonesia, because that's exactly what legitimizes Indonesia's territorial integrity. This is quite important. I just asked for 1 or 2 minutes. This writer Bill Hayton, I think he wrote a book in 2014, and there is this sentence which is very interesting. He wrote, "What happens if someone shoots an archduke?" What he means was, if you are familiar with the story, with the history of the First World War, how it was triggered when the Austrian Archduke Franz Ferdinand was shot, and then it triggered the First World War. But basically, people believe that that incident, that assassination, was only the trigger. While the situation was back then very conducive for a big war. There was a rivalry between the British and the Germans, and the balance of our politics in Europe back then. The assassination of Franz Ferdinand was only the trigger. Now, when we look at the South China Sea, what Bill Hayton was saying is that all the ingredients for a big conflict in the South China Sea is there. It's just a matter. It's just, what if someone miscalculate, or there is miscalculation or misperception and clash, and maybe between Chinese Coast Guard and U.S. naval vessels, for example, and that could trigger the conflict escalation and a big war in the South China Sea. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Pak Arif. Now let's move to the last speaker, Pak Dr. Ari Widodo. Silakan Pak. Pak Arif, tolong presentasinya di close dulu.
Thank you, Pak Redo. Yeah, thank you. I'll just be very brief, because there's so many points has been presented by the other panelists before. Okay.
Ari Widodo ini adalah Program Director of E-Learning Program at LSPR, lecturer, lecturer, PhD in Journalism, School of Journalism and Creative Writing at the University of Wollongong, Australia. Master of Arts is also at the same university. Ya, silahkan Pak.
Okay, Thank you, Pak Rendo, for the introduction. I'll promise I'll be brief. Hopefully, I can do this in 3 minutes because that's what we do now in Australia, 3 minutes presentation. So today, I'm just gonna maybe try to connect a few bits in there, but from media perspective, that a lot of discussion and debates that we have now is about what we have in the public space. And what we have in the public space is often related with what the media presented to us. So is it now means that it's a conflict? It's a conflict by says by who? Who says it's a conflict? I mean, yeah, there is a different interest. There is differences in the way. Well, that means equal with conflict. Now, definition that we have a conflict or possible conflict, I think from media perspective has been a lot about coming from the media point of view. But then media here, we also have to remember it's not just about the mass media, but also the public owned media, including the social media. So when you have social media, it seems to be like harder to control, but actually it's not. It's not really that hard to play with the social media alike, because if you know how, there are ways to bring up an issue, to direct certain issue into directions that we want them to be. So in terms of what happened in South China Sea, is that I think it's a lot to do with the force that we have now, the perception of the conflict. So we brought us about the underlying issue. What exactly is the issue? I think I like the point that Dr. Yanya presented. That in the beginning that
Halo Muhammad, tolong
Bapak kami ini semua tahu semua kan orang.
Alfi tolong di mute. Bisa kamu yang host.
Okay. All right. Thank you. The underlying issue here, like Dr. Yan presented, is that we have a complex issue at hand, and it depends on how we want to proceed with it. I think what she presented may not have an end as well. All is just part of the journey. So when we have this journey, we can probably have a few steps back and a bit more relaxed, and then it's like, okay, what do we have here? And in this region itself, for instance, we are talking about at least close to 20 different nationalities and countries, just like Professor Rifani has presented earlier. And of course, differences in the interests and the needs and etc. will be so much different. And let alone that if you look into the map, I think maybe, I don't know, 50%, 60% of the global trading from East Asia, Japan, South Korea, and China will pass through there because it's a maritime route. No wonder then the global power, like Dr. Julian has presented as well, has see this area as a major stake for them, and therefore it is important that we also put that in mind, that it is understandable that global power see this as a situation that is quite serious, but it's also an opportunity that we can also see it from a different perspectives, multiple perspectives. Now, but my point here is that behind the scene, the story might be quite different, despite all the rhetorics and the discourse about conflict presented by global power. I think from media perspective, there is something else going on, and I'm because I'm not a practitioner in diplomacy in reality, but from my days as a journalist, there always be a story behind a story, and often it's like an iceberg. What being known by the public, maybe only just the tip, like 10%, but the beneath it, the complexities, the issues, and etc. Will be much different. Maybe if I have to jog people memory, anyone remember about a scandal called Iran Contra? The things that supposedly never happened, but it happens because then it came up in the public. And this, the world, our world is like that. So I think from various speakers that we have here, I found great enjoyment to listen to them and absorbing the totally different perspectives. So I think the story, or the real story, the main story, or the main thing behind this so-called conflict or tension or whatever, it's still out there, and it's not yet been understood yet, at least for the general public. So with that, I think in the end, we just have to open the mind, open the possibilities, and I hope that we have time to have a discussion to discuss about the multiple view was presented by the finalists today. Thank you and good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Ari. Okay, we are finished with the presentation from all speakers. Now let's move to the next steps of the question and answer. I will read some questions that I have here. First questions we have. I think we can extend about 30 minutes if it's okay for all of the participants, because yeah, we have some questions that need to be discussed today. Number one, from Putih, for all speakers, especially from Indonesia, can Indonesia continue to balance China's provocation in Natuna waters? Meanwhile, in terms of military strength, we are far behind the PRC, People Republic of China. The worst is the cost for 1 hour of operation for a frigate-type ship. For diesel alone, it costs around 900 million rupiah. Then what will the Indonesian government do in all this limited condition? Any speaker want to answer this question? From Putih? Julian, maybe? Dr. Julian? Or Pak Rudi? Ya, Pak Julian. Silakan Pak Julian.
I'm sorry. I was in the middle of the other Zoom. Okay, could you repeat the last part of the question? I didn't.
Yeah. Can Indonesia continue to balance China provocation in Natuna waters? Meanwhile, in terms of military strength, we are far behind the China. The worst is the cost for an operation for a frigate type ship. It costs around 900 million rupiah. Then what will the Indonesian government do in all this limited condition?
All right. Okay, I got the point. Well, I think because we have intention and have interest in our territory, talking about the Natuna Islands. And then, as we know, that the climb of the 9-dash line from China is reach the area, at least, because if you compare with the others, like the Paracel Islands or the Spratly Islands, yes, of course, Natuna is relatively a little bit far compared to the others. But this is the sovereignty of Indonesia. We know that I think so one of our presenter addressed about the global maritime fulcrums. I think we had straight to the point about the global maritime fulcrums. We know, and I think all of us remember when the President Joko Widodo addressed global maritime fulcrum at the time. And I think it's the in 2014 in the one of the Asian summits. And oh, sorry, I don't remember about the place. I think this is the maybe yes, one of the Asian nations countries. Then at the time, President Jokowi addressed about Indonesia will be becoming a global maritime focus. This is actually, if we really implementing the global maritime program in practice, we don't need to worry about anything that will happen in the our territory, because we have to preserve and protect our territory because we have the ability to do that. No, but it is my view. If we look at the map and by the Navy or the naval perspective standpoint, we know that now China could be tried to the exercising power around there to testing the water in the quote unquote to see the react of the other countries if they try to reach the outer territory outside of China. It's actually based on UNCLOS is jurisdictions told us a part of the countries like Philippine claim is their own territory in the Spratly on the Paris Island, for instance, and so on. So if we look at this activity, military activity in the Southeast Asia, especially and the nearest to the area of the Natuna Islands, I think it's not so maybe what are the terms? It's not so for us in Indonesia, not so difficult to handle, because we know this actually could not be a big problem or the war, for instance, at the area, because it's only just the not involved in so many vessels, like based on the nuclear, on etc. So if Natuna really trouble seem like the Paris Islands or the Spratly, we have to go to the I mean like tribunals and the international tribunals like the Philippines to confirm and which of course we have confidence to do that because they're based on the UNCLOS and the international agreements, like the China is actually involved there. So this is the frame of the South China Sea. So if the could be happen in terms of the war in the bigger war, maybe as I previously mentioned, that could be getting worse situation there, and because the rivalry between the U.S. and China. But I think, and I'm pretty sure, that it's only that because between the two, both China and the U.S., they really know if they actually clash at the area. It's no zero-sum games. I mean that this actually they don't need to go for war, for instance. But the tension is getting higher and higher. This could be as a dynamic from the area, but probably it's not so to bring out the other war, like the third war. But why I mentioned about I'm very concerned and deeply concerned about the situation in the Southeast Asia, especially in the area of South China Sea, because nobody knows who controls the PLA. This is the point. I have to highlight this statement because, a storytelling. If we look the history, then we know that why Japan suddenly attacked the Pearl Harbor. It's not directly directed from the emperors. It's just only as the decision making created by among the general of the military services in Japan, not directly close to the direction of the emperor. So this is a very dangerous if the story repeat again in terms in the situation in the South China Sea. So this is the way why actually I should make probably all of us to should pay much attention about this situation, because the problem is not directly that if we look the situation by the U.S. perspective, we know that this decision of war in the U.S. government is actually they have to pass the process, like the Senate, for instance, of the House of Representatives. But in China, we don't know. The problem is the PLA. Is who controls the PLA? This is the point I think we should careful about the situation. Could be miscalculated, and the potential war could be happened in the area of the South China Sea. Thank you.
Rendra, if I may add.
Yeah, please.
Just two short things, because the question is related to the Natuna Sea, if I'm not mistaken. I think Indonesia has already sent a very clear message to China, especially, for example, when we look at President Joko Widodo visit to South China Sea, and then after that, in 2017, if you remember that, Indonesia renamed the area as the North Natuna Sea, and I think that's just sending a very clear message about Indonesian positions in that case. And the second one is Indonesian response to what happens last week with the Chinese vessels roaming around the Indonesian EEZ, for example. And again, at the same time, the response is the same regarding the military response to that, sending the patrols to the area. And in this case, I think regarding the Natuna Sea, then I think we have already sent a very clear message. I mean, Indonesian government already sent a very clear message about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Rudi. Next question is like to there is a question from Ilham Saki Pangestu to Dr. Yan Yan. Is Dr. Yan Yan still with us? Hello, Dr. Yan Yan. Hello. This is a question from Ilham Saki Pangestu. Could you explain based on what China claim more South China Sea by detailed data, especially from history, geology, role of zona economic? Could you give us data about that? If you is still with us, Dr. Yan Yan, would you answer that question? I think she already left. Okay. Anyone, any speaker want to comment on this question? Professor Rifani, maybe?
There was I was asking my Edward Snowden student from Malang here to rephrase the question. Can you rephrase or repeat the question so that I understand the question again?
Yeah, could you explain? Yeah, it is. The question is for Dr. Yan Yan actually. Could you explain based on what China claim more on South China Sea by detailed data, especially from history, geology, role of zona economic?
Okay. I can't claim that I know the specific data, But the one I presented just now, and I'm definitely not the most up-to-date person when it comes to the latest development in South China Sea. However, at the paradigm level, the arguments being made is basically it's not necessary, and this is based on 2016, what I know. So I don't know what the latest development is, but a very strong basis of the claim is been put on the burden of historic seas, which means the argument is very much cultural and historical practices of China's experience in the sea. So more so than and the 9 dotted line is actually, some say, is very much arbitrary. That also known as a U-shaped line. So it's not a sovereign territory claim as much as historic seas claim. So if we can make the same argument, which is based on a paradigm that this space actually belongs to us, this space has been occupied for us, this space has been with us for a long time, number one. Number two, that this is a Nusantara type sea, which is a kind of sea that's very much similar to Mediterranean type sea. And then first of all, it doesn't make it ethical for somebody else to come in and to privatize the space, right? The second thing is that it's not practical as well. It's not a practical approach to have a harmonious relation and harmonious kind of way forward, trajectory to move forward. So that's how much I can say. So my argument is very much at the paradigm level more than the data level. So if we continue to pursue the data within the paradigm, then we'll be caught by the rules of the games of the paradigm. And we want to say that there's a better way to play, there's a better way to engage, there's a better way, and then to get into this paradox. So Dr. Arya and me, we are having fun with this idea right now. So we are caught in this paradox. It's paradox because in a way it's a paradigm. And then you bring in the politicians in, they have the front stage, the back stage, and maybe more the side stage, and then all kind of stages maybe. So that's why I'm saying there might be, and then all these stages are stage, a front stage for some people, a back stage for some people. So in this world where there's a post-truth or multi-truth world, data is so contextualized. Data is sometimes misappropriated, and people are selective in believing what data and presenting what data, that we will be stuck in the same paradox. And so I think that will be my argument. So we got to Nusantarize this South China Sea. We got to Nusantarize this reality. We haven't brought in our voice, right? The Nusantara voice has not been heard enough, and we got to bring back the power of Nusantara, the heritage of Nusantara, and bring back its heritage argument. So that I think that's my main point. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Another question here is from Evi Arbai. There is 2 questions. What's for spillover effect from China-US conflict in SCS for Indonesia and other ASEAN country? And the second question is from Evi also. Yeah. How do you see about the possible conflict between China and Taiwan try to collect support from other country, including Indonesia, and what should Indonesia respond on it as Indonesia only believe one China policy? Pak Julian, maybe first comment. This is about Indonesian foreign affairs policy.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. Dari Mbak Evi ya.
Yeah.
Mbak Evi. Okay. Well, I tried to the second part question first. So Taiwan, I think is did it did clear enough. Yeah, it was clear enough about the Indonesian position to agree on the unity of the people of the Republic of China. This one China policy. So then Taiwan, of course, we know that to some extent Taiwan states that the position is like the other countries, independent countries. But actually, if we reverse the agreement of the international and the United Nations, we know that there is no discuss about that. It is the position of the state in terms of the frame of the state in the international relations. So, but the problem is because we know that the constellations, the Southeast Asia actually, the position of the Taiwan is the entry point to the mainland, the center. As I said, mentioned before, that the Taiwan is the center and the east, the peninsula is the northeast side of the China mainland. So this is very, I think, for China, especially for mainland. This is very important for them because if you talk about the access of the ocean, access of the wider ocean to support the oil pipelines, for instance, or the other activities for the China mainland. This is very easier if they through the Taiwan Bay. But the problem is because we know that the Taiwan now give high signal for the China, not only for China per se, but around the world to their position as political standpoint. That the Taiwan has a position is not the same that's familiar with the China. And it's a different country or the different part. Even though the sun, if the rivers of the international agreement, it is the only one China policy, as mentioned. The problem is because the close ties with the U.S. Now China tried to, for like I described before, to the build several artificial islands to block and to cut the close ties supported alliance from the U.S. to the Taiwan. If it is possible for China, probably the negotiation in terms of the negotiation between the mainland and the Taiwans could be different. Could be, I think, that a little bit difficult for us or for them to make a new agreement or reach a point between the Taiwan and between the China. So the major factor is just only the U.S. present there with the Taiwan. So the first question, I think, sorry, I missed the question. Could you repeat again the first question? Shortly, very briefly.
The first question, what spillover effect from China-US conflict in SCS?
Yeah, I think so. I already is my concerns about the situation to getting rise and uncontrollable. So, due to the, as I should mention again, due to we don't know what's actually the aim of the objective of the PLA of China. because the military of China has their own hierarchy inside. So it is not totally different. I don't see that the President Xi Jinping have the fully authority to control the military of China. So because by this is the storytelling standpoint, you can see that the South, the past World War II, like why they decide decision making created by the Japanese military to attack the Pearl Harbor of the U.S. So it is not easy to clear. Just make a difficult conversation, I think, to that. So the problem is we have to know. But actually, I'm really respect if Dr. Yang still here, so Dr. Yang could give briefly explanations about the decision-making process in the PLA, because the point is the PLA, not only just the government of China, not only based on the President Xi Jinping per se, because this situation is very difficult and very complicated. It's one hand, the president has their own authority, of course, we don't no doubt about that, but the other hand, PLA has their own authority or own objective. It could be not the same line or the same line with the we hope that the presidency. I think this is my response to the screen offer for the situation of the South China Sea. The problem is not it's based on the formal government. The problem is the who control the PLA. This is PLA is very important to know, and how far to the guarantee that the PLA not make a decision for the I think so, because by if we see that the naval a viewpoint of the Navy, we know that the embrace to the wider ocean in terms of the territory of the many countries in the South China Sea, probably it's not the direction between the democratic system. We know that the president, the other democratic countries, we can understand. It could be understandable, but in China, I don't know. I'm not sure. So, but I'm sure if the situation in the South China Sea, it could be calling down, like for instance, yes.
Okay. Sorry, Dr. Julian. We still have only 5 minutes left.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
We have still have 4 questions and 1 comment. So I think I just read the last 2 questions. So it is from Janet Dia Ekawati for Dr. Jan, and maybe the other speakers can answer these questions. I would like to hear your comments on the CCG 5204 and Indonesia's Maritime Law Enforcement Agency, Bakamla, and the Indonesian Navy in the North Natuna Sea 2 weeks ago. The second question is, what is your outlook and possible armed conflict between major powers in the South China Sea, and is Indonesia prepared for such a conflict? Who will answer this question? Maybe Pak Arif or Pak Rudi? Ya, silakan Pak Arif. Waktunya tinggal 5 menit.
Right.
Singkatan.
Yeah, sure. The point I think is a new challenge in the South China Sea, the Coast Guard expansion and how countries use Coast Guard in the South China Sea. The conventional wisdom is that whenever countries refrain from using navy and instead use coast guard, that countries send a peaceful message. White hull is more peaceful than the gray hull. That's the conventional wisdom. But what's happening in the South China Sea is that countries using coast guard in a passive way, and China is not alone in that regard, of course. Other countries, Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, all trying to expand their coast guard capabilities. And I think the challenge is to find a new procedures or a new code of conduct or the rules of engagement which involves this coast guard cooperation. For Indonesia, I think the challenge, of course, and this is the old problem, how to streamline the maritime security governance. Do we agree that Bakamla is going to be the coast guard of Indonesia, or the nexus between Bakamla and the Navy and other agencies and all that? So the streamlining maritime security governance is the challenge for Indonesia.
Okay, because we have finished out, maybe we just can have last statement from all speakers. First, from Professor Rifani, would you like to give last statement or comment? Professor?
Okay. Just now I was presenting my backstage so that my front stage can do something else. I was standing to that I think I just now I did not start by thanking, doing the appropriate thing by thanking Dr. Rendro, Research Center, LSPR Research Center. Saya juga lihat ada Ibu Hersinta di situ juga, Mbak Hersinta, who was the previous head of Research Center. In fact, Pak Ari was long time ago, like last millennial or something like that. He was the head of Research Center. So I've been close and working together with LSPR for quite some time now. So thank you very much for keeping this friendship going. I really appreciate that. And perhaps the point I want to raise is right. If we ourselves, the Nusantarans, right, ourselves do not define our own space, right, someone else will come in and fill the vacuum. And if ASEAN cannot come together, then some parts of ASEAN must come together and speak the same voice and offer a different paradigm. Not the same paradigm where problems will keep on occurring, and that paradigm is very legitimate, very cultural, very powerful, and that is the Nusantara maritime paradigm. That will be my closing remark. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Rifani. Pak Ari, selanjutnya closing statement. Pak Ari.
Me? Okay.
Yeah, ada.
Thank you very much for all the honorable speaker here, Professor Rifani, Dr. Julian, Pak Rudi Skandar, Pak Arif, and Dr. Yan. Maybe got disconnected or something. The connection has been very unstable, I can understand. And this issue, it's far from finished. It's not left. I don't think that we'll see the end of this issue anytime soon. But I think as a scholar and as academic, I think we can take a lot of good point as a lessons learned from what we have seen. And this is a history unraveling in front of us. So yeah, thank you again for all the audience who came by to see this discussion, and see you again next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Ari. Pak Julian, ada closing remark, closing statement.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I would like to take this opportunity, the last opportunity, to address my statement. But prior to that, I would like to thanks for all of college of the London School of Public Relations who organizing this event is very good. and very enlightening for us. And I think it's not no statement from me, but I should be amplified the statement of the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres that he mentioned in the title of the war will benefit no one. Okay, I couldn't agree with him more about that because no one around us agree if we get involved in the war. So the concept of escalating tensions between the United Nations and China. So if Guterres alert us and give a warning about the world have to against the nuclear war, but I think I respectfully disagree about the situation. In my opinion, now we are now actually in the midst of the nuclear war. But the problem is, if we have to face the really war, so what should we do for every single country and every single people of the country? So I think is the most important thing. The title should be addressed again by the Secretary General to we fight the war. So we will not. We agree that the war will benefit no one, but actually we fight or we face to against the war. Okay. So I think this is my closing statement about our discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Julian. Selanjutnya Pak Arif bisa memberikan closing statement, Pak.
Yeah, I think South China Sea is a very complex issues, of course, but at the same time, I think it's coming from international relations background, political science background. I think what's happening in South China Sea to a very significant extent is predictable, quote unquote. I mean, scholars have been writing about how great powers behave and how smaller powers respond to great powers politics since many times ago. So I think in that regard, again, what's happening in South China Sea is normal, quote unquote. But at the same time, of course, it's very complex issues involving many aspects: economic, politics, legal, communication, of course. And I think this is a reality. This is South China Sea is here. So for Indonesians, I think it's important to understand more about this thing. Thank you again for LSPR for inviting me.
Thank you very much, Pak Arif. Dan terakhir dari Pak Dr. Rudi Sukandar.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Parendra, this is just a short closing statement. I think we are in the unilateralism age right now, when every country just focus more attention on inward looking on how they maintain and also preserve their interests. And I think the challenge that we have right now is how unilateral claim, for example, is opposed to the law that we have had so far. So how we enforce the law, for example, about the UNCLOS, for example, and then vis-a-vis the unilateral claim, for example, this has become our main challenge right now, especially when we are discussing South China Sea issues. Okay, with that, also I would like to thank all fellow speakers today. Thank you for your time and then giving the time for LSPR Research Center to have this very interesting discussion today. So back to you, Parendra. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Pak Rudi. And that will be all. And kita akhiri diskusi hari ini. Barangkali kita foto bersama ya, Alfi. Sudah siap? Partisipan bisa.
Kamera on.
Terima kasih banyak atas kehadiran Bapak Ibu sekalian, mahasiswa
dulu ya, Pak.
Yang tetap bertahan ya. Ada berapa nih yang mesti bertahan? 100 lebih masih. Ya,
Kamera on. Pak Arif, kameranya on. Sorry Pak Arif. Pak Arif.
Sudah menghabiskan 3 jam lebih
Ya.
diskusi kita. Baik.
Oke. 1, 2, 3. Sebentar ya. Ya. One more. 1, 2, 3. Gini boleh? Like this. Gini ya. Oke. Bentar. Sip. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you Alfi. Thank you very much. All participant ya. Kita mendapatkan insight yang baik sekali hari ini dan sampai ketemu lagi dalam acara monthly discussion yang diadakan oleh Research Center LSPR Jakarta.
Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Pak Julian, terima kasih for free.
Terima kasih semua ya. Terima kasih
Pak Ari, Pak Rudi.
Ya. Saya izin pamit ya.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Alfi. Thank you.
Makasih ya.
Makasih Mbak Evi.